Hey everybody, welcome back to Board Game Blender. My name is Zee Garcia, and today's episode is going to be all about fantastic worlds, extraordinary settings. Now, when I say fantastic worlds, I don't mean just fantasy, though there will be a lot of that in here. I just mean a place that is unimaginable, a wonderful setting for a game. And we're going to be taking a look at a lot of wonderful settings today, having discussions about the ideas behind themes. We're going to be taking a look at an interview. We're going to be looking at a lot of different things. So, stick around, enjoy the show. And as always, thank you for tuning in. Let's kick it off right away. Here we go.
Hi everybody! A great game can be like a great book in the way that it can spark your imagination. Call it a veneer or a theme, a skin or a motif, the thematic or story elements of a game may not be the primary factor in your enjoyment of a game, because, hey, I love my thinly veneered Euros. But these softer elements are certainly key in whether or not a game is creating a world that draws you into and even beyond what's on the board. Red Raven Games, which is essentially the one-man shop of Ryan Lockett, excels at creating fascinating worlds that make you think about the setting long after you've played the game. These worlds are rich, scary, fascinating, and beautiful, full of wondrous creatures and machines, and in part because Lockett is the game designer, artist, graphic designer, and publisher, Red Raven Games feel like they're set in fully formed worlds with intricate details. And Above and Below takes world building to a whole new level because discovery and story are central to the gameplay. In Above and Below, players take on the role of people living in a small village who discover a labyrinth of caverns below ground. You can build above ground, attract new villagers, and gather resources, or you can explore the caverns below, try to establish outposts, and collect rare resources, all the while facing adventures both big and small. There are thematic details woven throughout the game, from the restorative cider and potion to the way the villagers exhaust and refresh themselves. The gameplay is really straightforward with just 5 actions to choose from. You can build using a character with a hammer by taking any of the face-up houses or outposts you can afford, and buildings have a myriad of bonuses and abilities to enhance your village. Harvesting lets you take a resource token from one of your buildings for each worker that you use. And beyond all the great story elements of the game, this resource allocation piece is really fascinating because where you place the resources on your advancement track impacts both your income and endgame scoring, and this is a strategic element of the game I love. You can put your villagers to work with the labor action and get a coin for each worker you use, and you can train new villagers by using a character with a feather. You get to take one of the available character tokens by paying the cost below them. But the game comes alive when you explore. You can go down to the caves with 2 or more adventurers. Dice determine which story you get to tell, and then whether or not you pass the challenge you face there. Success means you get a cave card for future outposts and other rewards. By combining worker placement with storytelling, Lockett's created a unique gaming experience that doesn't just create a fantastic world for you to play in, it lets you explore, discover, and influence how that world evolves. The art is gorgeous and evocative. Each villager is unique, and while you'll want to select villagers for their abilities, I find I'm always drawn to villagers because of their look and the story that I can craft around their presence in my village. I'm a fan of Red Raven games in general, but this game really stands out. Above and Below is one of my favorite games because it has those Euro-y mechanisms that I love, but it really sinks you into this world that you'll be thinking about long after you play and even dream about at night. See you next time.
Hey folks, welcome back to another Real Talk episode on the Blender. I want to thank you guys for joining us. Today we're talking about fantastic worlds, and I began to think about what would make a world that would be so fantastic that I would want to live there. And I was thinking that maybe, more than likely, what would have to happen is that there would have to be a definite blending or a collision of sci-fi and fantasy. Those are my 2 favorite genres, and so I thought, well, what world is represented by that? And the one that first came to mind, probably because I just talked about it very recently on another video, and that is this one right here. Thunderstone Advance, but Numenera. And this world is really, I think, one of the coolest implementations of sci-fi meets fantasy that I've seen so far. Now, there's probably a lot of other ones out there, but this is one that first came to mind. It just has a really neat interaction between technology and regular fantastical elements and all that kind of stuff. So Thunderstone Advance is one of those games that I really thought about as we started talking about this idea of a fantastic world. Not necessarily fantasy, but just a world that really kind of takes your breath away. And that's Thunderstone Advance Numenera. But then as I began to think about what exactly makes a world fantastic, is it technology? Is it the things that you're able to do in that world? Is it just the scenery? Is it any of that stuff alone? And I think no, it's not. I mean, what good is technology if there's nobody around to use it, right? What good is scenery or sounds or anything like that if there's nobody to share that with? We were talking about this recently about what kind of age would we want to live in, you know, me and Zee and Tom, and the first thing was technology. Would I be able to live without technology? And I thought that kind of made me sad, because technology doesn't make us who we are. Yeah, it kind of makes our lives easier sometimes, but it doesn't make us who we are. I hope you get the idea of what I'm talking about here. I think what makes any world fantastic are the people that are in that world. And that's what can make this world fantastic, if we would just learn to get along with each other a little bit better. So hey, you know, maybe that's a little bit too deep for me, but look, I'm just trying to keep it real, y'all. We'll see you on the flip side.
Hey there, I'm John from JonGetsGames, and today we're talking about fantastical settings for our board games to live in. And sure, you have standard fantasy with like dragons and elves and sorcerers, but I wanted to figure out what the weirdest, most fantastic setting of a game I've played and owned is, and it's gotta be Chicken Caesar. Now, this is a very odd game where thematically you are a bunch of senators who are also chickens in a roost, and there is an emperor. It's essentially a Roman government style intermixed with farmyard politics, specifically a bunch of chickens in a coop. And somebody's going to be the emperor, and there is all sorts of political intrigue. Well, people get promoted into being senators, some people become the tax authorities, and then one person every single round is going to be, well, one chicken is going to be the emperor. And every single player controls a family of these chickens, and they're trying to push them up the different ranks of this political structure. And there's a bunch of mechanical things going on. It's a very odd game which involves a bunch of bribing and politics. I don't think it's actually an amazing game. It's certainly an interesting experience that I like to try and play at least once a year because it's so odd. I mean, in fact, you can have the people be the guards and the gatekeepers, and you can pay them to just look the other way so the fox runs in to the coop and eats the people that you don't like. It's just an amazing theme for such an odd, like, serious political drama of trying to jostle up all these different ranks. But at the end of the day, you have a bunch of chickens on the cards, and you are in a coop, and it feels like what it's supposed to be. Like, it could almost seem like, oh, just a pasted-on theme, but the way they integrate having the fox run in and kill a bunch of people, and the way they just have the art exuding through every single piece of this game really kind of makes you feel like you're in an imperial chicken senate, which is an odd situation to find yourself in. So if you haven't heard of this game before, I strongly encourage you to at least look it up online, maybe look at a video or some photos, because it is a very interesting package that all comes together and just a very peculiar game.
So what game has these cute pencil drawings, has these wonderful wooden carrot tokens, these are nice and high quality, and is about divorce? It kind of got dark there at the end. Okay, I am talking about, of course, for our quirky game, Kuhn versus Lakia, and the whole title here is Kuhn versus Lakia, a chronicle of a royal Lapine divorce foretold. Right. This game is about, as you might figure out from Lapine divorce, a bunny divorce, two rabbits, royal, by the way, rabbits, that are getting a divorce. And it's a two-player game in which one player will be the role, of course, of Kuhn, the other one Lakia, and they are splitting up their assets. doesn't sound, it just doesn't sound very pleasant. But having said that, the cards are cute. The drawings, as I said, are almost childlike, which is kind of weird, but okay, fine. It's a very light-hearted game where it's supposed to be. And the gameplay itself is the star. It really stands out. It's a deck-building game for 2 players in which you are wrestling for control over several characters are at the court, grabbing cards from a deck of cards that is set by that character, using that character's power if they already are, if you'll pardon the pun, in your court. And there's a really nice flow to the game in which you are, again, going to be taking a few different actions, trying to influence characters, and then earn these cards. They go into your discard pile, and then at the end of a round, you are going to gather up all your cards in your discard pile and take them all into your hand. It's the kind of deck building game where you are building up your hand, really, because you get the entirety of your deck, if you would, at the beginning of each new round. You don't shuffle up and then draw 5 or something. You just get them all. And then you go back and forth, taking actions, getting more of these cards, and trying to influence the characters to be on your side, just, trying to come out on top. The game has a lot of different scoring opportunities and ways in which things are tackled. It's not a simple game. It looks that way. In fact, I think that's one of the things that makes it so quirky. It's a game almost in search of an audience. It's only for 2 players, which already is a hard sell for a lot of people. It looks like this, which I know I've seen at least one person, Sam Healy, turn away in disgust from. And it's about rabbits getting a divorce. Not exactly at the top of people's lists of themes they want to check out, So it's sort of a weird, quirky, and bizarre gathering of ideas, But surprisingly and thankfully, it works, and it works well. It's got a nice amount of conflict and actions to take and things to do and interesting moments to sort of tackle. I liked it. I was surprised by it, but I enjoyed it. So, if you're looking for something weird to play with your significant other, it's about divorce though, I don't know. If you're looking for something bizarre to play with someone, this is not a bad choice. A 2-player game that tackles some bizarre things in interesting, original ways. This is one I would recommend for that. Check it out. Kuhn versus Lakia for our Quirky Game.
Howdy gamers, it's time once again for Buy, Try, or Deny. I'm Indiana John. Today we're taking a look at fantasy and fantastic locations, games that defy imagination and take us to places that we ordinarily wouldn't be able to go in our mundane day-to-day lives. That's one of the cool things I like about games, is that even though we're sitting down at a table with cardboard and wood and plastic and cards and things like that, that we can really be transported and go places and do things that we wouldn't ordinarily be able to do. So I've selected 3 games this time that have fantastic or fantasy sort of settings, but not really sort of the traditional Dungeons and Dragons high fantasy sort of setting. Those are some great games that have that theme or genre to them, but I try to go beyond that a little bit. And so, in the words of famous artist and poet Coolio, slide, slide, slippity slide, come along and ride on a fantastic voyage. Our buy game this time is probably the closest to a traditional fantasy setting, but it's got a little bit of a twist to it, and that is Arcadia Quest, big heavy box, from Cool Mini or Not. In this game, you are in the city of Arcadia, and you're trying to reclaim the city after it's been overtaken by the evil vampire Lord Fang. And you're putting together your team of adventurers, and at the same time, your opponents are doing the same thing. And I say opponents because this is not a cooperative game, nor is it semi-cooperative. It's a competitive game where you are fighting against the monsters on the board, and you're also fighting against each other. One mission objective in every mission is to destroy a member of your opponent's guilds. And so that makes for some really interesting and different gameplay as you're sort of vying and jockeying for position, but you're all ultimately trying to get to your Lord Fang. It's a campaign-based game, so you get multiple plays. There's lots of good scenarios in the box. But I think the thing that makes it sort of a different sort of fantasy setting for me is the art style and the design of the miniatures, which are fantastic, some of the best that I've seen in a board game. But the art style is sort of this chibi, cartoony sort of artwork, which I think is great. It gives it sort of a lighthearted feel that goes along with the dice chucking romp that it is. So I think this game is fantastic. It's become one of the highlights of my collection in the last year, and I would highly recommend that you check it out. It's our buy game this time, Arcadia Quest. Our try game this time explores a different sort of fantastic setting or location, and that's the dystopian far future. And I'm talking about Android, the board game from designer Kevin Wilson. Now this is different from the Android Netrunner card game, but it's in the same genre, same theme. And in this game, you're playing an investigator who's trying to solve a crime that's happened in the city of New Angeles. And so you're investigating, you're trying to collect evidence. You're also playing a character whose story is playing out over the course of the game in a very interesting way. It's a very dense thematic game. There's a whole lot of stuff going on. It's extremely complex. You're trying to investigate a conspiracy, which is played out as a sort of puzzle with puzzle pieces on the board. And there's just a whole lot of things going on in this game. It's a very polarizing game. I think people either love it or hate it. It's definitely a labor of love for designer Kevin Wilson. You can see the kind of detail and care that he put into designing this. And so I think it really falls on the, like I said, love it or hate it scale. I personally love this game. I think it's great. It takes a great investment of time and effort in order to play it, but I think it's an awful lot of fun. And so if you haven't had a chance to check this game out yet, I think that you should find a copy and give a try to Android. Our Deny game this time is an example of a great designer coming together with a great theme to make a pretty mediocre game, unfortunately. I'm talking about Discworld Ankh-Morpork, designed by Martin Wallace. Now, Martin Wallace is a fantastic designer. No one can deny that. He's in the Hall of Fame, if you will. And the writings of Terry Pratchett, the Discworld books, are fantastic and full of such great characters and stories and settings, and so it's really ripe for a good board game treatment. And unfortunately, this was not it. It was almost like Martin Wallace already had designed this sort of dry game about moving stuff around and putting things on a board and playing cards, and then they decided to just put this Discworld theme over top of it, and the theme just doesn't come through at all for me. None of the whimsy or humor or just interesting things about Terry Pratchett's novels come through in this game. And so if you're looking for a Discworld game, don't look at this one. And so Martin Wallace, like I said, great designer, but this was not a great game. Our Deny this time, Discworld Ankh-Morpork. So there you have it. Our Deny game, Discworld Ankh-Morpork. Our try game, the polarizing Android, and our fantastic and fantastical buy game, Arcadia Quest. So what games take you on a fantastic voyage? Let me know in the comments, and be sure to follow me on Twitter at IndieBoardGamer. So that's another episode of Buy, Try, or Deny. Until next time, game on.
Hey everyone, it's MAGGIBOT. Thanks for watching Blender. I'm sorry I missed last week. If you're looking for an amazing collaboration, my go-to is always going to be Rococo. That's Matthias Kramer and the Malls brothers. It's amazing. It has an expansion coming out. It's in print. You can't miss that game. Rococo's amazing. This week though, we're focusing on fantasy worlds. Now, you all know that I like German strategy, European-style games. Those are a lot of trading the Mediterranean, buying and selling stocks, that type of game. Why don't German strategy games feel very thematic? I would say that they do feel thematic, but they tend to be based in reality. They tend to get produced from things that you would inherently know, so the rulebook doesn't need to spoon-feed you a lot of theme or world building. It can get right down to the mechanics. An excellent example of that is Walnut Grove. We've all read Little House on the Prairie. We understand what they're doing and why they're doing it and where they are. So I don't actually need Walnut Grove to tell me anything about the theme because I understand it inherently, so it can get right down to mechanics. Some games do a better job of this than others. You have games like Race for the Galaxy, which has a lot of theme, has a whole military system, has a science system, an alien system, but you don't feel that while you're playing the game, which is why San Juan, which is a very similar game, feels more thematic. Though you have examples like 51st State and New Era from Portal Games doing a really good job of making you feel post-apocalyptic, like you're struggling for every last resource and there's nothing else and you're warring with these guys next door and they keep trying to blow up your stuff and they take your fuel and it feels post-apocalyptic, but they're rare that they do that. I think one of the best things that a European strategy game can do is base something that we all kind of understand already and then make a fantasy twist. My favorite of these that never got a lot of attention was Mermies. Mermies is a worker placement game where you play an ant colony. So you're warring with other ant colonies and you're building ant hills and you're having larvae and you're trying to complete these goals. It does a good job of something you would understand by looking at it. However, you've never been an ant and really don't know their struggle, so it's interesting and new and fresh. And of course you have the big guy. You've got your Terra Mystica where they don't ascribe what kind of fantasy you're going to play before you play. They let you choose. You have a big open world and 14 races, and then you get to pick whether or not there's cultists in this world or engineers or dwarves or witches or nomads. And the fantasy elements come through based on your choices, which is always a strategy game thing. And lastly, you have games that have a pretty interesting story like Luna, which is in print now, but don't do a really good explanation of why or how. In Luna, you have a moon priestess and she's walking between the aisles. You have the acolytes working to get into the temple and you have a council of priests, but nothing ever really comes of any of those thematic elements. They're all based on the mechanics and where you need to have things at a given time. I love fantasy worlds, but I would much rather have strong mechanics than a strong theme, so maybe this isn't the week for me. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see y'all next time.
Hello folks, welcome to Quarter Chat. I'm Mark. Today we have with us Taran Lewis Kratz, designer behind Helionox, The Last Sunset. Thanks for joining us today, Taran. It's great to have you here.
Hey Mark, thanks for having me on the show. Glad to be here.
So, Helionox takes place in a futuristic timeline where the solar system is in terrible peril due to a dying sun. What was your inspiration behind the theme and story for Helionox?
Story-wise, Luke Green and I were out camping one weekend, and we started coming up with the ideas for the story for Helionox. He and I used to work on comic books together when we were kids and had all kinds of crazy stories. And he was always a really good artist back then, but hadn't really done art, at least as far as I know, for, 10, 15 years or more. I don't even know how long it's been since he really started doing art. Took a big break in there since high school and just said he was interested in getting back into art. So, and of course I was interested in building a game. And so we started compiling these ideas, and he just started banging out some just beautiful, beautiful sci-fi art with the idea of this catastrophe happening right here in our own solar system. And that idea just sort of percolated into what became Helionox. But yeah, it was really a lot of his art really kind of inspired a lot of game mechanics, and then I think the game mechanics kind of inspired more art. So it was definitely a collaborative effort through the entire creative process there.
So yeah, the artwork in Helionox is simply stunning. How many iterations did you and Luke go through before settling on the final art?
Yeah, Luke is absolutely an incredible artist. He just really knocked it out of the park with this one. I can't even believe the level of artwork that he has created, especially after not doing art for so long. It was just amazing that he was able to bring about this level of artwork. It's amazing. He's been getting all kinds of calls from other game companies, doing some more work for some other guys. So you'll be seeing his art in other games here real soon. So we're really excited for him and how that's going. as far as the kind of creative process, like the iterative process, he does a lot of that stuff himself. Usually pretty well developed by the time that I see it. But he's also extremely critical of his own work and tends to throw out stuff that there's no way I would throw out. I think it's gorgeous, and he's just like, it's kind of trash. So I end up digging through a lot of what he thinks of as garbage and look for gems in there and kind of, re-edit, refocus them. And, sometimes he lets it pass. Sometimes he's like, no, that's not going to go in this game. So he's pretty highly critical of his own work, but yeah, he's just, it's amazing. Not only does he bring a high level of artwork, but the speed that he's really started cranking the stuff out with is just, it's just been mind blowing. So look forward to more of that same level of artwork coming soon in the Helionox expansion.
In the design process, how hard was it to balance all the different characters and their abilities?
The design for the different characters and their abilities was challenging, especially in the beginning. When you're first coming up with a game concept, with a game design, it's hard to even know exactly where the game is going. Early on, we decided it was going to be a deck builder, and it wasn't until later that we decided that we really wanted to add in the characters as their own cards. But yeah, balancing those now is much, much simpler than it was when we first started. It was pretty difficult early on because, the idea is you want to make these cards that really push the limits that are really as good as they can be without breaking the game. So that's the idea that we had all along.
So Helionox is primarily a deck-building strategy game, but there are also solo rules and co-op rules that had to create some real design challenges.
Yeah, great question. Great question there. Seriously challenging design issues as far as the co-op and the solo rules go. So challenging, in fact, that in the original rule set we called them beta rules. And that worked out. But fortunately, I kind of started thinking about those aspects of the game pretty early on. And I feel like we've created a lot of design space that allows us to work with the events, which work directly with elements like cooperative and solo play. We're really hoping to flesh that out a lot more here in the very near future. In fact, the next expansion should bring about much more fleshed out rules for both co-op and solo play. So look forward to that very soon.
So it sounds like you have a lot in the works. Tell us, what are the future plans for Helionox? Where can folks find out more information?
We've got lots of plans for the future of Helionox. We've got an expansion planned for April, hoping to launch a Kickstarter early to mid-April with Mr. B Games. So we're excited about that. We're really hoping, kind of as I mentioned before, that's going to flesh out a lot of the rules as far as co-op and solo play go. We're looking forward to getting a chance to sort of rewrite and clarify a lot of the rules from the original core set, building in a lot of new abilities, a lot of new reasons to travel around to different locations. So it's going to be a really fun, full-sized expansion that should add a lot of gameplay, a lot of new missions. So I'm really excited about it. And of course, I'm super excited about what it's going to look like because I've seen a lot of the new art. And we'll keep you guys posted about that. You can find out lots more information at zeroatgames.com. We are also on Facebook under Zero at Games, Twitter. We'll be posting up some artwork real soon and some gameplay probably in the next couple of weeks. We'll post some gameplay video and kind of let everybody know where that is, and we'll let you know as soon as the Kickstarter goes live.
Well, big thanks for joining us today, Taran. It was really great having you on the show.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. Thanks from all of us here at Zero at Games. I know you and I have talked a little bit about architects for the new game. I'm looking forward to seeing what Luke does with an architect for the Mark Streed card in the latest expansion for Helionox. So get ready for that. we'll see how that one comes together here in the real near future.
Well, that's going to be all kinds of awesome. All right. Well, thanks, Taran. And folks, thanks for joining us today. And until next time, we'll see you at the table.
Welcome to Boards and Crafts, a place for quick tutorials with snacks and crafts inspired from games, for games, and all about board games. One of my favorite games inspired by the fantastical world of Dungeons & Dragons is Red Dragon Inn, and today I would like to show you guys how to make a drink from their drink bet, Troll Swill. Let's get started. The supplies that you'll need for this drink are as follows: some lime sherbet, some lemon lime soda, and your favorite green juice. To make this drink, put 1 scoop of lime sherbet into your cup, then 1 part soda, and 1 part juice, and don't forget to mix it all together. And that's it! If you guys have any ideas for tasty treats or creative crafts inspired by any of the board games mentioned in this video, comment below or tweet them at me at ArtsyRobot. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope that you have a great day.
Hey folks, for today's game, Under the Radar, I am taking a look at Uchronia, which is a game set in a fantastic world of Rome meets dinosaurs. It's a quirky idea. It didn't even need to be that bizarre, really, because it almost has that theme and then chooses to like not address it. It's sort of like weird window dressing that the game doesn't even acknowledge is weird. But that's besides the point. The game is Under the Radar because, well, I'm not sure why, but it's a Carl Chuddick game. That's the designer, who perhaps you don't know by name, but you are probably going to be aware of some of his games. For example, Glory to Rome here, very high-profile game, or Motainai, also a more recent design from him, also a pretty high-profile game. Both of those well-known, very well-known. This game, in fact, Uchronia, has on Board Game Geek a little less than 1,000 ratings, like 900 and some ratings. Glory to Rome is just shy of 10,000. So, I'm not sure why that is. I realize that Glory to Rome came first, and it was a game that got a lot of buzz when it first came out. It's a very solid design. And Uchronia was sort of a re-implementation, rethinking of that game, as really is Motainai. They're sort of evolutions on the same idea. Now, this one is simpler. It's sort of the simplest of the 3 here I'm showing you, but I don't think that's a bad thing. It's certainly one of the more colorful ones of the 3, or the most colorful one, in a good way. It's very attractive. It simplified some of the concepts that were seen in Glory to Rome by taking the cards that were in Glory to Rome, where every card was a lot of information, and sort of breaking it up into 2 decks of cards. You have the cards that are going to be in your hand, and these are going to allow you to take specific actions, and there'll be building materials and things like that. And then the part of the building of the cards that is a building that you can build used to be on the same cards in Glory to Rome. Well, this game takes that and splits it into its own deck of cards, and these will be on the table where everybody is sort of fighting for the same cards. And I like that concept because, you see, in Glory to Rome, if I had a card in my hand that was some specific building, I knew about it, and that was it. So I could build it whenever I got around to it. In this game, if I want to build this theater here, then it's out on the table. Everybody can see that theater. And if I don't hurry to grab it, then somebody else could come along and build that theater before I do. And I think that's interesting. It makes for another level of interaction, another level of conflict, really. And so I'm not sure why this game doesn't get more buzz. With the pedigree it has, the interesting choices in it, I think it gets a bad rap because it is a simpler, some people would say dumbed down, but I don't think so, Glory to Rome. However, if that's what you've heard and you've never tried the game, then I do encourage you to give it a shot. So go on out there and check this one out, everybody. for Under the Radar, Uchronia. I'll see ya. Boop, 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 boop.
One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them, in the land of Mordor, where the shadows lie. Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. In my opinion, the best fantasy series of all time. If only there was a board game about this.
Ah, but there is. Would you like to live the world of J.R.R. Tolkien without having to read the whole book? Try War of the Ring, an excellent board game right here.
Let's explore it further.
War of the Ring is an asymmetrical two-player game. The goal of the Fellowship and the Free Peoples is to get Frodo to the Crack of Doom to destroy the ring. The goal of the Shadow player is to overrun the Free Peoples and take over the world before that happens. For both sides, there are soldiers, leaders, and characters with unique special abilities to help with that. Each side also has decks of cards that enable them to further their quest. The Free Peoples need to work harder to activate their armies and move their peoples toward war. They have more special characters that mobilize throughout the game, and special actions that race the Fellowship to their goal. The Shadow, on the other hand, are already gearing up for war and world domination, so they have special hunts for the One Ring, Nazgul that flit to all corners of Middle-earth, and more warlike actions with regenerative armies. Just as in the famous trilogy, the Free Peoples race to reach the Crack of Doom undetected while the Shadow descends upon the land, seeking the ring and wreaking destruction. I cannot say enough good things about this game. The only downside that we have with it is that it takes so much time to play that we don't get to play it as often as we would like. As you can see, the components are absolutely beautiful. They're very sturdy, and I think these would look gorgeous painted. The dice are some of the easiest to read and the most beautiful dice that we have probably in our whole game collection. The cards are big and easy to read. The artwork is phenomenal. It looks like you just took stills out of movies and some of the pictures out of the book. You know, they're just absolutely stunning. And the gameplay, obviously there was so much going on that it does take a while to get the rules down and everything. But once you understand how to do that, the game flows pretty smoothly. And I enjoy it so much. It's so immersive. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, my favorite part about it is that it flows like the book, but it's not scripted. You can make your own decisions on what you want to do. You can split the Fellowship off early. You can keep them together. And at the end of the night, you know, win or lose, good side, bad side, you've written your own story of the Lord of the Rings, which is just a phenomenal experience.
So check it out, War of the Rings 2nd edition. Thank you so much for joining us.
Cool catchphrase!
Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Roy Canday, and this is From Easy to Epic, where we talk about an easier game with a focus on the beginner, and then a more epic game with a focus on the advanced player. This week on The Blend is all about fantastic worlds and fantasy environments. The first game I'm going to be talking about is Entropy. Entropy is a 2 to 6 player competitive game where players are simultaneously playing actions, trying to get the shards of their reality locked into play in front of them. Each turn, every player will select an action to play for the turn, then they're all simultaneously revealed. If 2 players play the same action, they will clash unless one of those players has collected the anchor, which allows you to take an action even when you clash. If you clash, you don't get to take your action's ability, but if you clash 3 times, you get a special bonus at the end of the round. So you're trying to play your actions, manipulate the different decks, put your shards into your pile, flip them over, and lock them into play. If you get 4 of your shards locked into play, then you win the game. The art in the game is fantastical and amazing, and the game even has a soundtrack you can download that matches each different world in the game. I really enjoy how Entropy is so easy to learn and teach for new players, and there's literally no downtime with the simultaneous action, so you can play really quick, and it's awesome to try to get all the shards of your reality together, and it makes this beautiful diorama. The art in this game is amazing, and with the soundtrack and everything else, it really brings the flavor of the game to life as this fantastical game. So if you're looking for a quick, easy to learn and play game, make sure to check out Entropy. For our more epic of a game, we're going to be talking about Time Stories. Time Stories is a 2 to 4 player cooperative game where players are going to different times to try to save all of humanity. You have been hired by the Constorum to work in the Time Agency as a temporal agent to have your mind sent back in time into different receptacles to try to save the world from catastrophic events. Each player will play as a receptacle with different powers and abilities depending on the scenario, and they're racing against the clock trying to figure out clues and figure out how to solve the problems that are set before them. Have to use teamwork and deduction to try to find the best routes and ways to complete the scenario, and hopefully not wasting too much of the Constorum's money. Space Cowboys has created scenarios in all sorts of different timelines, alternate timelines in the past and the future, all over the place with amazing art that really drive the feel and theme of the game. Time Stories gives you the feeling of choose your own adventure or escape rooms in this amazing, fantastical world. I really love the epic storytelling in Time Stories as you're whisked away in different times to different fantastic locations. You have all sorts of different scenarios that they're coming out with that are going to put you in crazy different worlds, and the art in this game is amazing. It makes me sad that I can't show you a bunch of the art because there's a lot of spoilers in this game, and this game is all about the experience that you get. The cooperation in this game is a must as you're trying to figure out puzzles and work together every step of the way. Time Stories has rocketed to my favorite cooperative game of all time, and I love cooperative games. Me and my friends have had a blast playing this game, and I can't wait to play all the new scenarios that come out for this game, and I'm really excited to see what scenarios different designers and creators can make. So if you're a designer, make sure to make something for Time Stories. So that has been From Easy to Epic. I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you guys next time.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, wraps up our Fantastic Worlds episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. A big thank you to all my contributors for their wonderful segments. Thank you, guys and gals. And hopefully we will see you again in a couple of weeks for our springtime episode, games about the springtime. I am calling it Spring Has Sprung. So come on back for that. And hey, as I always say, stay a friend of the blend. I'll see you.